biggest, aspect to that was the montage at the end. And David Dobkin, who directed it, also directed Wedding Crashers, which had a huge montage. The camera department built this raised mound where they had a circular dolly track around it so that it looked like a green, but the green was raised up. So that's how come there's those all those spinning shots. And he had it all storyboarded. He sent me pictures of, it's kind of like a beautiful mind with different colored index cards with different colored pens connecting them.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Kingdom of Dreams podcast and Making of Stories. I'm your host, Jawad Mir. Today, my guest is Ivan Victor, who is an editor on the most recent Apple TV Plus series Stick, starring Owen Wilson. Ivan and I had a great chat about the series itself and his work involved on it, and how the series keeps grounded, focusing on very limited amount of characters, and it keeps it very, very basic and simple. So, without further ado, here's my conversation with Ivan Victor for Apple TV Plus Stick, starring Owen Wilson. I would love to know, if we start off with, your involvement on this series, how did that come about? Was it like an organic process, or if you can just talk about that just to start off with, that'd be greatly
It
appreciated.
was an unusual process because this was coming. I started a year ago, so when was that?
Hmm.
For, but that was still sort of in the aftermath of whatever the new normals that we don't quite have yet is. If that makes any sense. That seems like a weird way of saying it. But anyway, like the business is refinding its
Yeah,
footing.
yeah, of course.
In
Yeah.
in the gold rush days, you would walk out of your house, and by the time you'd gone from your house to your car, someone would have offered you two jobs. So jobs were scarce on the ground, and my agent actually um, mentioned the show and said, "Do you know anybody who's involved?" And I looked on IMDb, and then it was just a process of finding anyone that I knew, however tangentially, who knew someone on the show to send in my resume or put in a good word. Um, so it was just, like pulling whatever string I could pull to get on there. And I think that the one of the final pieces that really helped was a post producer I'd worked with years ago, who my assistant editor had kept in touch with some of his crew, got the job as post producer on that show, and the third slot was open. So I was fortunate enough to get that. But it was a lot of work to get the show.
Yeah, no, I mean it's more or less in our industry, it's pretty much the path that you're talking about, or if you had worked with somebody in the last project or the project before that, they bring you on board. So I mean, yeah, that itself is a daunting task, but at least you got on it. It's a great project, and very tight and very meaningful with interesting characters. When you read the script, did you read the entire series, or was it just the pilot?
The
What?
first, but before I met, I think I read the first two scripts,
Okay. Okay.
and I was really impressed with the tightness of the scripts and there's there's the story that bubbles along on top, but that everybody involved has. And I know that, like, I've foolishly or not been reading reviews, and some people are sort of ragging on the amount of trauma that people have suffered, but it's a TV show, everything's heightened. But I was impressed about the depth of everybody's issues. How everybody, all the characters have something they're working on, and they, as you'll see as the series continues,
Yeah.
things bubble up. But I was
Yeah.
I was very writing.
And that's the thing that I was impressed about, which what you mentioned too, is that, by the end of the third episode, there's really six characters, if not five, that have come in and gone. And that, you know, granted, the pilot was a little bit longer, but the other episode was a little shorter, but still, for that to be able to have that kind of tightness, nowadays, that's really rare, even in TV shows slash movies. And I think that's why people are resonating with it, because of that, the development of a character. And Owen Wilson, I mean, he just carries such an amazing persona too. So that obviously helps. But what's your workflow like on in normally or in this project? Were you on the set, or was it after it was completely done that you came on board?
Uh,
How did you take a bite at it?
it was it was block shooting, so it was done, 2 episodes at a time, and I was came on the second block.
Mm.
Um, they shot in Vancouver because why would you shoot the show in America and Vancouver? It's rebates, so
Yeah,
it was
yeah, I
cheap
get it.
to shoot there. So we would basically start with production. So we were getting, as they shoot, we get dailies the next day. And I like to do this anyway, is to keep in touch with the director as much as they like, to discuss what they like, what they don't like, discuss what I'm seeing, what's working, what's not working. So I was able to do that with the directors on my episodes as well.
Was there a specific thing, a scene or an arc or something that was not working in the first three episode or was working and you suggested otherwise that you can talk about?
I can't really speak to the first 2 episodes. I wasn't particularly involved in those. I mean,
Okay,
I do.
let's talk about the third one then.
Well, no, nothing really. The biggest aspect to that was the montage at the end, and David Dobkin, who directed it, who also directed Wedding Crashers, which had a huge montage, did an incredible job in preparing that. And he had the camera department build this raised mound where they had a circular dolly track around it so that it looked like a green, but the green was raised up, so that's how come there's those all those spinning shots. And he had it all storyboarded. He sent me pictures of, it's kind of like a beautiful mind with different colored index cards with different colored pens connecting them. So there was nothing that in that episode that was problematic other than just the challenge of that huge montage.
Got it. And where were you in Vancouver? Which part? Did you enjoy Vancouver? Have you been there before? I mean, it's one of my
I
favorite
wasn't
cities.
sorry, I didn't specify. We weren't
Oh,
there.
you did.
We were on LA. We were all in LA, and it was pretty much a remote show.
I
So
see.
there was a I'll just cough and then have a pause so you can edit that out. Um, we all work from home, but there was a room that production post had hired for us up at CBS Radford to work with directors. So I ended up working with David Dobkin on one and Jafar Mahmood, who did episode, but he did 5 and 6. So I did one with him, but he was in Vancouver because he was shooting second unit. And then I worked with John Hamburg. So worked with two directors in person, and then the rest was remote because Jason Keller, the showrunner, would be up and down between Vancouver and LA. Obviously, when production finished, he just preferred to stay at home and work remotely.
Right. And I'm always fascinated with people's journey and how it began. What was the bug that got you or bit you that led you to where you are today? What inspired you?
Well, it was odd at the time. My parents used to yell at me for watching too much TV, but I guess I was doing research when I was young. I liked a lot of TV, um, but I was always interested in film and TV and music. And then um, my first job was at ABC News in London, the
Mm,
American, working on the production floor. So I saw what the news editors did, and the excitement of cutting news. And also they had a three machine room there where they would do those longer feature pieces. And I learned the very basics of an in point and an out point, and video, audio one, audio two. So when I moved to America, I told people that I knew how to edit, which was true. I wasn't an editor, but so I started cutting very basic news stuff. And then it was like I don't know when it was, probably the early 90s. A colleague of mine had started learning Avid, and I thought, oh, that looks interesting. So I learned that. And then a friend of mine, like, it's a business of relationships, as we're speaking
yeah,
about. And
100%.
so, this guy said, oh, you should learn Avid, it's fun. And then someone else from the news station was doing some reality stuff. So I started doing reality TV. And one of the producers from one of those reality shows was producing the Tom Green show when it moved to LA. And I was at there's one of those, I don't know if you're a fan of sliding doors. Not everybody is, but it's one of those
What,
sliding doors.
the
That,
movie?
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
one
love that movie. I love that
of
movie.
Richard Iowati doesn't. I don't know if you've read his book on it.
That I have not, but I would love
That's
to.
that's a good read. And I quit a job because it was just unbearable. And someone said, "Oh, come and cut promos for a judge show. It's a union job. It'll be great." And this guy from one of the reality shows said, "Hey, we're doing the Tom Green show." And I said, "Yeah, but I've got this job and it's union." He said, "Come do Tom Green. It'd be more fun than that." So fortunately, I went for that job, which led to there was a kind of bounce between doing like MTV comedy shows. I did Lyricist Lounge and Andy Dick and Jackass, and then in between, I would go and do various crappy reality shows, and then there's always someone that kind of helps. And there's an editor friend of mine, John Corn, who had been on Reno 911 and wasn't able to do it, so he recommended me for that. And then because I'd done that level of improv, when John wasn't available to do this one episode of Curb, I got a meeting on Curb and did season 7, episode 1 of Curb. And then when John didn't want to go back to Parks and Rec for the second season, I got that. So and that was kind of, I think the key thing was to be on a big series, and I was on seasons 2, 3, and 4 of that. So that was it's the cliff notes, I suppose.
Did you you mentioned Curb Your Enthusiasm. I'm not sure if he worked on that season. Roger Nygaard, do
Yeah,
you know him? Yeah,
I
I
know.
had him.
I know. Sorry, but Roger was off directing something, which is why I got to do that episode.
Right. And I asked him about that because I had him on a while ago, I think a year and a half ago for the Trekkies, the documentary that he directed. And he talked about Curb. I think he's been involved in it from the very beginning. So that's interesting connection.
Yeah.
Small world. What what is it about editing that you enjoy? I mean, I think I know the answer, but I would love to hear from you. Maybe it's a little bit different that you enjoy that you probably can't find that in directing or writing or, cinematography or any other job on the set.
That's a very good question. I mean, there's so much I love about it. I love the the solitude of put, putting stuff together. I love when you're working with good people, the collaborative aspect. And I love it's like being an all-rounder. I don't know if you're a sports guy at all, but sometimes there's like an all-rounder who can
Mm, yeah, yeah, yeah.
obviously we're not DPs and we're not writers, but we understand about framing and what shot size means in terms of the narrative. I just finished up working on the Vince Staples show for Netflix, and Vince is very big on sound design and how that plays into everything. So we're dealing with all of these different aspects to put them together, and then it's that final rewrite aspect of it too. So I think it's I don't know, or the whole thing, and then you get into the minutiae when you're very close, when it feels right about does someone blink here? Do they not blink? How much of the door do we see closed? It's like all of those
Yeah,
like
the details.
yeah, it's like this huge big picture of what's the story and then all these kind of micro aspects of it as well.
What is there a specific editor who you've looked up to or a specific film or series that you enjoy watching from the editing standpoint?
Ooh. Um, I don't know, there's too many. I mean, Billy Wilder is my favorite filmmaker. Um, but I couldn't probably I should probably know who cut his films. Um, I don't know. There's too many to mention, when you look at I don't sorry, there's just too many.
No, it makes sense. I thought you were probably gonna say Walter Murch, but everybody says Walter Murch. So,
Good.
uh,
I mean, I love Alan Hyme, who,
mm,
he's all that jazz, and he did Network and he did 12 Chairs. Um, there's a ton, I mean, Richard Chew with Star Wars and The Conversation and Cuckoo's Nest. There's a ton.
right.
There's
And
some great editors out there too.
I was going through your IMDb and I don't remember. Have you done features? Like, is that something that you have worked on or you want to work on?
I would love to. Do you have any, got any leads?
Sure.
No,
Uh,
the features I've done have been really super low budget. So the first one I did was in 1994. It was called Flesh Suitcase. I should have mentioned that in my how I got here. It's while I was working at KTLA.
mm,
Uh, I as like the cousin of someone I knew in London was out here as an actor, and we were all, early 90s trying to do stuff. And there was a writer we knew who had this script called Flesh Suitcase, which is on YouTube. You can watch it too.
I'll
And
check it out.
we just said, fuck it, we'll just make it. Whatever money we have, we'll make it. And like someone who was our production designer had this big craftsman house in Pasadena. So we built everything out. We raised money. We shot it in, I think, something like 17 days on 35 mil short ends, and we got into the inaugural slam dance, which was fun. So yeah, all the films have been no budget, low budget. I would love to do features that like, you know, take a bite out of that particular genre of storytelling.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. It's interesting you were talking about earlier about watching television and that was your research. I've never had anybody articulate it that way because that was the biggest problem my parents had with me. Because I used to watch, when we migrated to Canada, all I did was watch TV. Like that was my thing. And it's so interesting. You use the word research because that's, even though Jurassic Park did it for me, like in terms of knowing what I want to do, but I think before that, just having that education and research from different TV shows and movies really goes far in terms of teaching you a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I don't know when it was, but I do remember watching The Third Man. I think I don't know, like I'd rented it from Idiots or something. And I remember seeing Joseph Cotton get to the top of the stairs, and like there's like a medium
Hmm.
shot, cut to a wide shot of him going across the landing. Like something just happened there, and I rewound and I noticed like they'd taken a chunk out of his walk, and I think that was the first time I'd really noticed that aspect of tightening of
Editing.
things. Yeah,
Yeah. And that has become, I shouldn't say that has become more common now, but I think it has become more and more common now where audiences become a little bit smarter. I mean, would you agree that like there's a lot of times a scene would be cut from, getting a car stopping in a parking lot, and instead of showing him or her getting out of the car, unless it serves the story, you see them getting out of the elevator or wherever they're reaching. And I don't think that was probably there that much in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, or even early 2000s. Would you agree with that, or is that am I overlooking at things?
no, I mean I'm not as like au fait with the like cinema history in that way. Certainly, from what I do know, early on that whole Russian school of
Mm,
show every step, and then I think probably was the 70s where things got more stylized in terms of, or the French New Wave of just I'm bored, let's just cut here, and you've got the jump cut was born. But
yeah.
I think audiences are more sophisticated, despite what network notes seem to tell us when we're in the notes process.
Going back to Stick, again, you worked on episode three. As simple as you think, as simple as you say it was, it's still editing. I mean, you're still, yes, you have a script, yes, you have different shots and different takes, and you still have to rearrange sometimes, shots and scenes because it's probably worked on paper, but it's not working in the visual flow of things. Was there anything off script that you felt like that need to be sort of changed in terms of a scene, you know, where it was in the script and how it ended up in the episode?
Yeah, we played with structure a lot towards the end with that big montage because I don't know, this may be a spoiler if people haven't watched it, but there's a scene where Mark Maron's character, after he's been trapped in the bed, has been freed by the fire brigade, and that moved around a few times. And there was a couple of extra scenes of Mark Maron trapped in the bed that we didn't
Mm,
need. Took At one point there were two scenes with Eleanor trying to get him out that were separated by something else, and we stuck those two scenes together. Um, what else did we do? Also, initially, that montage was supposed to end sooner and have more of a dialogue score approach to the end. But again, David Dobkin was like, no, let's just use as much of the song as we can. There's one tiny music edit in it, but it's pretty much the song in its
mm.
entirety. So that changed from the script because the script did have you get to a certain point, and then as he's approaching the last hole, we're back in, not the montage world, but that's not how it ended up.
I'm glad you talked about the scene underneath the bed because I love the fact. I was going to ask you how much coverage you guys had in the footage because you probably there's only two shots of him underneath the bed that you see, and the rest of it you just hear him,
Yeah,
which I thought was really cool because I think it helped build a relationship that probably will come up in the later episodes between those two characters. They're trying to find they don't like each other from the beginning, but who knows, there might be something blossoming right there. That to me was really, really cool. Was that intentional to have that kind of distance
That
from
was,
the characters?
as I recall, that was in the script. Coverage was shot for that, but we didn't use it other than at the time that it was. I think we may have gone to it just a beat earlier than before it was
Mm,
scripted. The intention was to not use that as a band-aid, and that scene was a challenge, especially when we made the Titans to it, dropping lines to make it flow. But yeah, the idea was to not see him as much as possible.
yeah. No, that was really cool. I really like that. And when we're watching something, Ivan, or even working on something, consciously or subconsciously, most of the time, we enjoy something because there's that relatability aspect to it, right? Um, which character would represent who you are in the series and why?
Oh God.
Sorry to put you on spot.
That's all right. I was just going to say the old woman that he's given the golf lesson to at the beginning who can't even hear what he's saying. I don't know. There's a little bit of all of them in us. I'm too old to be the phenom, and I'm not washed up at this point, so I don't know. Probably none of them.
Hmm. Okay, fair enough. I will say this though, and I know you didn't have, as you mentioned, you were more on the third episode, but the opening of the first episode, I thought it was fantastic because obviously from a sales standpoint, like it's like a sales 101, you can watch it over and over again and learn how to sell something, but it sets up this character that you think is just amazingly genius and this and that, and then it goes into a complete shambles life he's had, which I thought was really, really well crafted, obviously in the script, but also in the post production aspect.
Yeah, it was good. I think as well that the initial kind of montage at the top was something that came about after various iterations because initially the script was just Owen's character selling the golf club, but without the kind of what golf means to him kind of thing.
Mm,
But also, we even though we were kind of working remotely, Mel McCoy who cut the first, she did 1, 4, 7, and 10, and Dan Gabby who did 2, 5, and 8. We talked to each other on and off about how we felt certain characters were playing, and we weren't quite as we used to do when we were in person. Like, back in the day when we used to work in person, if you trusted them, you'd invite people in and say, "Hey, what do you think of this?" But
sure.
because they had assemblies going out and I could see what people were looking for, I looked at their episodes to just get a sense of tonally what people were looking for.
Mm. Okay, that makes sense. And have you seen the entire series?
Oh yeah, several times. In my
And
episode, yeah.
w- as an audience member, not necessarily a person who worked on it, was it satisfactory?
Yeah, I think it really is.
Okay.
And what I like about it, not quite the most, but what I'm really proud of is that everybody involved, absolutely everybody, I feel like it has a strong voice and a very clear tone. And that I feel is often the toughest thing to execute in any moving image medium, whether it's a picture or a TV show, is like that consistent voice. A lot of shows you watch, especially when it takes actors, the same with a feature, however many days it takes actors to learn their relationships with each other or learn their characters. I think the actors are all at such a high level that they knew who their characters were, and it's got a very, I don't know, I always felt that the tone was strong and kind of what it needed to be. Whether people like the storyline or like that tone, I still feel like we achieved the goal, which is a coherent story.
Yeah, no, it like I said, I mean, so far so good. I don't know. I think there are 10 episodes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know where it's going in terms of will it wrap up by the end of 10 episodes, or is there something that's going to lead to season two? I'm not asking, I'm just talking. And and that's something I would look forward to. Personally, for me, I'm more into now series that are mini series, or at least two, maybe three season, because in three season you can tell that chapter one, chapter two, and chapter three story. So it would be interesting to see where that goes. And like a show like Stranger Things, now it's in its fifth season, and I lost interest after third season because that was enough for me, right? Like it's just you need to sort of draw a line. And I know why studios and streamers do it. Obviously, it's money. But I think I think this show has a very strong potential, to be honest with you, because it's very simple and straightforward. It's not about golf, but
Yeah.
and that's what I love about it. It's just very simple and very grounded, I would like to say.
Yeah, I feel that too. You see it's someone who's lost a son, someone who doesn't have a father, someone who's lost a partner, someone who's lost a partner. They're it's pretty relatable to a lot of people. Not necessarily all that level of death, but still
Yeah,
there's
yeah, yeah.
relatability in terms of that loss.
100%. What's cooking up next for you? Anything you're working on that you're able to talk about?
Well, I mentioned it briefly. I just finished the Vince Staples
Right,
show
right. Yes.
on Netflix, which I loved. That comes out in November.
Season
Um,
two?
season two, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. There may be more. Who knows? It may be in that sweet spot for you of just three. It's only six. It's only six episodes.
That's a decent number, right? Like that's pretty decent, I think.
Yeah. No, I love doing that, and I don't know what's next. I'm, putting out feelers as always. Maintain those all those relationships because you never know when someone will come along and say, "Hey, I can't do this show, but maybe you could."
Yeah.
I
That's what it's all about. That's 100% what it's all about. Any particular film or show that you are that you recently watched that you weren't involved in that you liked?
just finished Department Q on Netflix. It's Matthew Good is the
Okay.
lead in it, and it's based on a Danish show, and it's Scott Frank who wrote and directed it, and Michelle Tesoro edited them all. Um, and Matthew Good's incredible. I don't know, did you see The Offer on Paramount about the making
Yes,
of?
I love that. I love that.
Well, he plays an entirely different character. I mean, you could suggest that Bob Evans was a psychopath, but anyway, I really loved that. Film-wise, just saw some. I saw Sinners, which I liked, but that's a whole other long conversation. I don't know if you saw that.
I haven't. I keep hearing about it, and it's on my list. I I wasn't really too crazy from the trailers, so I don't know how. But everybody raves about it. Anybody I've talked to, they said you should watch it, so I have to.
I think it's one of those ones that's worth watching. I'm trying to think, feature-wise. The Phoenician Scheme is great if you're a Wes Anderson man.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen some of his movies in the most recent times, but I will check that out. You know what you should watch? We're talking about tight shows. This is like a rather old show. When I say old, I would say probably 4 or 5 years. And anybody I mention it to, nobody has ever heard of this show, but it's probably one of the most amazing miniseries I've ever seen. It's called 000.
Okay, I'm writing that down.
Not the number zero in the
Yeah.
alphabet. And it's literally about the cartels, the Italian mafia, and the people who do business in America. So it kind of connects family in three different countries, and it's kind of like a Sicario feel the way it's done, but it's really brilliant. One of my favorite miniseries.
Yeah. Oh, we also, I mean, for TV, we enjoyed Mobland as well,
I've
which
heard
is
that's good too. Yeah,
Tom
I've
Hardy
heard.
and, Pierce Brosnan with a bit of a roaming Irish accent and
Yes,
Helen Mirren
yes.
as a bit of an evil one.
They're coming in a movie together too by Chris Columbus, the Thursday Murder Club or
Hmm.
uh, August
No, that's
28th.
Spielberg doing that one.
No, Spielberg, his company co-produced it. Amblin produced it. Chris Columbus is obviously who wrote Goonies and who's directed Home Alone, Mrs. Doubtfire. and all that fun stuff. But
That's based on the Richard Osman books, right?
yeah, yeah, it's based on books. Yeah. I saw the trailer. I wasn't sold on it, but hey, I'll still watch it because it's Ben Kingsley, Helen Mirren, Pierce Brosnan, Chris Columbus, and Don Burgess, who I've had the pleasure of having so many times on this podcast, who's DP, who's worked with Robert Zemeckis in the last 30 years. So it's an exciting project. I'm looking forward to that.
It's great. I'll have to
Amazing.
check that.
Amazing. Well, it's been pleasure talking to you, and like I said earlier, um, pleasantly surprised by Stick. Really good, nice little show, and I'm looking forward to the next episode. I think it's on Wednesday they do it. I
Yeah,
think my
Wednesdays.
man. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
Uh,
it's there was three to begin with, and it'd be one a week till the
yeah.
10th.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to that, or maybe I'll hold off because I saw three in a row. Like I literally just saw three back to back in under 2 hours time. But looking forward to it. Amazing. Thank you for your work on it. Totally like
You're
it.
welcome. Glad you enjoyed it. It's always nice to, I'm a big believer too. Obviously, it's important that things are, liked by people, but also there's the intrinsic value of what we do in making it is also really important. But it's great when people actually watch and even more when they like it. So thank you for that.
My pleasure. Well, thank you so much for your time and accommodating with your schedule. So I know you've got meetings coming up, and we'll probably chat soon. Maybe when this new season of what's the show called? The Vince.
Good Staple Show.
Yes, we can probably chat about it back around that time. Pleasure having you.
Love to. All right, take care.